Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to talking about something we don't often hear in the news or media, and something that's not often discussed when it comes to things being unfair and people getting discriminated against in the workplace. We're always hearing about girls being treated unfair and women getting the short end of the stick when it comes to work and the environment in the workplace. They're always complaining about not getting promotions or paid enough or getting listened to. They always say they get cut off. But today we have a story to kind of counter that. We're talking about a certain situation at a certain theme park in Florida that has a sort of reverse discrimination lawsuit coming against them. Now, of course, it's not really reverse discrimination. Discrimination against men is just as valid as discrimination against women, but you really don't often hear about it, and I wonder if this case will actually go through. First of all, the facts are just coming out, so we're not even sure 100% what's all going on, but there is some articles. It is interesting. The case has been filed. We'll see what the judge has to say at the end of the day, but it is a very good sign kind of towards equality. You know, women always talk about wanting things to be fair and equal. Feminists claim to want to be treated as the same as men, but in actuality they don't mean that often. They want to be treated better and put above men in a lot of cases. They want special treatment, special privileges and stuff like that. So this is the kind of case where it's like they're getting what they ask for. Here's the fair treatment, here it comes, and what they're showing is, hey, you have to treat guys the same too. You can't discriminate against men just because, I don't know, you're a feminist and you hate us or something. For more details on this, we've got an article from the Orlando Sentinel called Ex-Legoland Public Relations Director Sues Claiming Discrimination as the Only Man in an Otherwise All-Female Office. Okay, very interesting premise so far. First of all, first things that come to mind is we're talking about a theme park near Orlando, Florida. We're talking about an office that is all female, which kind of makes sense. From what I've heard, a lot of theme park employees and enthusiasts tend to lean towards the female side. It's a more lady-dominated field and profession. They're working with kids. They're working on kids' sorts of entertainment, which tends to be dominated by females too. And that's an interesting premise to bring in this guy who says he was discriminated against. He was the public relations director. And yeah, it just goes to show this kind of stuff happens. It goes both ways. It's good to point out because it's good to see some fairness in the law, in cases, in what gets filed. I mean, if we went back just 5 or so years, this probably wouldn't even been filed. This probably wouldn't have even come up, because most of the time if guys have an issue, say if there's a lot of girls in a job or situation, the guys will just be told to tough it out. They'll be saying, hey, don't be weak, don't be lame, you could handle a bunch of girls. But if it goes in the reverse, it's like, oh, girls, we need to get the government in there, we need new legislation, we need to fire all the men. That stuff would happen right away. The cops would be involved, the judges would be throwing around orders, and people would not even question it. But in this case, I wonder how it's going to go, and I wonder how the details are going to play out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and read on into this. Legoland, Florida's former head of public relations, who helped generate publicity for the park's expansion last year, is now suing the company, saying he was discriminated against working as the only man in an all-female department. In Polk Circuit Court, Sean Micus, 34, filed the civil lawsuit asking for more than $30,000 in damages against Legoland, Florida last month. Micus said he was yelled at and humiliated regularly during his 8-month tenure at the Winter Haven attraction before he says he was wrongfully fired, according to his lawsuit. Legoland doesn't comment on pending litigation. Park spokeswoman Kelly Cornick said when asked for a reaction to the suit. Okay, a good amount of information already. First of all, he seems to say he was wrongfully treated and wrongfully terminated. Sounds like he was harassed and taken advantage of too. Not sure about all the details of that yet. And then the other thing is $30,000 in damages. A lot of money for sure, but not necessarily the most for a lawsuit, for this kind of lawsuit. I mean, $30,000 is around what someone might make in a year at a part-time, small, low-level job. It's not a ton of money, but if they work there, it says they only work there for 8 months, so that could cover that 8 months. I think that's probably part of the salary. Like if you figured out the rest of the money, they might make around $50,000 at this job, so he wants the $30,000 he made during that time period. I'm not sure how they work out all those details, but basically I think it's fair to say it's a reasonable request. if this person was wronged. It's a big multi-million dollar, billion-dollar company. I mean, Lego is huge. This is a worldwide thing. This is a theme park that has, I think, multiple locations as well. Legos are very cool, by the way. I love the Lego toys and all their variations. I hear Legoland's great as far as the theme park goes, as far as the entertainment. So this isn't really an attack on them. It just happens to be a possible bad situation in one of their offices, in one of their departments, in their PR department, which is definitely possible. It doesn't necessarily reflect on the whole company yet. We don't know what the culture is there. We don't know about this investigation or this court case, but it is telling, it is interesting to see. And also, it's interesting to hear a man kind of suing against women, and we're wondering how that's going to turn out because, again, like I mentioned before, there's a big stigma about this. There's like a double standard. Like, guys aren't supposed to come after a group of women or sue women or say they did anything wrong. They're supposed to toughen up. And if it was going the other way around, everyone would be bending over backwards to try and believe this Shawn Michaels guy, who likely, we don't know which way it's going to go yet, but to go this far, to hire a lawyer to bring up the lawsuit, he had the job, he lost the job. I mean, it's definitely in the ballpark of possibility. Legoland hired him in November 2018, several months before the park debuted new rides in Lego Movie World. After 2 weeks in his position, Michaels implemented a multi-phase plan to launch and sustain media exposure of Legoland's largest park investment and biggest addition in park history, the lawsuit said. Jillian Smith, Legoland's marketing and sales vice president, denigrated his work immediately, using belittling and harassing words, the lawsuit said. Michaels said he faced criticism when he explained media trends. Smith accused him of making excuses, the lawsuit said. When a female colleague presented similar information, her response was it was vital industry information, the lawsuit said. Okay, so we can already see he was kind of getting mistreated, getting talked down to, and in addition, he was getting a double standard, like a different treatment than what the other female employees would say. This goes to show that, yeah, it's a female-run company. Jillian Smith is a female leader who is a VP, denigrating this new guy. This guy works with all other girls who get treated better than him. So I could see this toxic environment, and what this reminds me of is, what this makes me think of is an overcompensation, an overcorrection, if you will. Feminists are kind of activating for this. They're asking for this all over the place because they feel they've been wronged in the past by men. So now they think they're entitled to treat us badly now. It's a very messed up way of thinking. It's super, super hypocritical. And it's also just based on stuff that's not true. I mean, not all the time were all girls treated poorly. These feminists have a chip on their shoulder, clearly, and that's why they go up with these stories. They're like, oh, men have been persecuting women for years. We need the right to vote. We need this and that. They've had the rights for a long time now, though. So them kind of crying about past infractions that really didn't happen to them, it's just going to their insecurity, and it's going to show that they're not comfortable in their skin. They're not happy with who they are, so they want to lash out. And since these kinds of people, these SJWs and leftists, they never take blame or responsibility or admit they have any agency. So they go after people they don't like, and usually that means blaming men or white people or Christians or Americans, whichever it may be. They're going to go after us. And in this case, this guy seems to have walked into a pretty toxic work situation. He's got a girl boss. He's got girl coworkers. He's getting treated differently because he's a male. This sounds like textbook discrimination. This sounds like a case he should win. Now, granted, we need to make sure all this stuff is true. He should have support for it. He should have backups, email proof, maybe even phone calls, text, video, whatever it may be. I mean, we got to follow up on this, but if this is the case, assuming what we see is true here, I could see this happening. And knowing what we know about feminists and their tendency to overcorrect and overreact, and they're also just the gall they have. They don't care about things being fair. They're not saying, oh, we want women to be treated equal and we want everyone to have fair treatment. It's like, no, they want women to be treated better, and they also want men to be treated worse. So they have like two conflicting goals, and it's all in the name of equality and fairness. That is just a bad idea that we know they've never gone with for a long time. Micah said he was regularly humiliated and told there were problems with his work without getting any feedback on how to fix it, the lawsuit said. Micah said he was the only full-time male employee in his 18-person department. In June 2019, he complained to Human Resources about Smith shortly after he was fired, July 19, 2019, without ever receiving a warning or formal discipline, the suit said. His attorney defended Micah's work amid the firing. Okay, more information here, very damning. I think the first one, and this is hard to kind of deny, the other stuff could be considered almost hearsay, a matter of opinion, but this thing we're talking about here, if Micah's was the only one male out of 18 people in a department, that means there's 17 females and one dude. I mean, that is strikingly unfair, unbalanced, and just frankly, using the words of an SJW, I mean, this is sexism. This is people hiring too many females because they have a female-led, a female work environment that's obviously not welcoming to men. Now, I don't want to complain. I don't want to sound like I'm whining. I don't think we need to break down this company. There's certain jobs that do attract males versus jobs that attract females. We all understand that in the real world, but these are the same kinds of people who would complain in another situation. Like if they saw a job like, say, there's a bunch of male cops in Los Angeles, you know, that's going to be something they're going to be like, well, we need more female cops. Not necessarily that one though, because cops are a dangerous and hard job, and usually feminists and SJWs, they don't care about getting actually fairness in like hard things. They want easy, high-paying jobs. So they would probably complain more about like a video game company that hires designers and graphic artists, and let's say they had a 19-person department, an 18-person department like this story. If they had an 18-person department and there was only one girl, that would be a huge problem to the left. They would complain, they would cry. We'd hear Anita Sarkeesian tweeting about it, making videos, and everything would have to change. Now, when it goes in the other way though, it's okay. It's not a problem. It's encouraged even. They're even allowed to fire men who complain about these shortcomings, about these problems. And I think this guy, if these details all add up, because if you go to the firing thing and he talks about his complaint to HR and then he's fired like a month later, that's another bad sign too. This guy could be in for a good amount of money in his case if he wins, which is looking pretty good. He is accomplished at what he does, said Thomas Dickens III of Morgan & Morgan. Since then, Micah's has moved back to Chicago and began working as a communication manager for Hilton Hotels in December, according to his legal team. His abrupt end at Legoland was difficult, Dickens said. When anybody is subjected to a firing, it creates a pretty emotional situation. This is your sense of identity, Dickens said. When you wake up in the morning, it's not, who am I going to talk to today? What stories am I going to tell? You don't have that. After Micah's left his job, Legoland laid off a small number of employees in October, a spokeswoman said, declining to give exact numbers when contacted by the Sentinel in November. We are restructuring our line of reports affecting 1% of our total employees in order for continued growth and financial success, according to a statement provided by spokeswoman Chloe Bum. Legoland, like other Central Florida theme parks, has been shut down since March in midst of this pandemic. Okay, one thing I'm going to note from there is this Chloe lady works for Legoland, then the VP is a woman. I mean, every single person I've seen has been a woman. I'm not sure why that's the case, why this theme park is so female dominated. I'm not even sure that's a problem. I wouldn't normally complain about that, but again, we're trying to hold the same standards to these people they would hold against us, and they've complained about many dumb things like this before, so we have to kind of spin it back at them and say, hey, check this out. You need to be fair. Are you looking to be fair? Do you want equality? That's what you claim. But at the same time, we're seeing all this proof that's showing us otherwise. In the end, this is a great example of how men can be discriminated in the workforce too, and things need to go both ways. If women are going to complain, if feminists are going to make these big, bold statements and propositions and talk about equality, talk about fairness and diversity in the workforce, they need to have it go both ways. And I don't know if they're ready for that. I don't know if they really are interested in being fair, balanced, diverse. They're just interested in those ideas when it helps them further their cause. And their real cause is more women need to get into more easy jobs that pay more money, and we need to take down men like what happened to this Micah's guy at Legoland. That about wraps things up. Thanks for watching today. Make sure you guys comment your thoughts and everything below. What do you think about Legoland? What do you think about this guy's case? What do you think about discrimination against men? Does it happen, or is it a big secret that never happens like how feminists might claim? Comment your thoughts on everything below. Thanks again for watching, and make sure you guys leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Really helps us get shared and get supported. And until next time, you guys have a good one.